Hi guys, hope you can hear me. Sorry about the delays. I have had a shocking night. One of my video camera has stopped. My all the setup for my computer had gone away, and yeah, it's just all been a very bad night. So apologies for the delay. I hope there's some guys there watching. I've got the chat up. So look, if you guys got any questions tonight, just let me know, and I'll yeah, just let me know in the chat, and we'll go through. Right, what we're going to be looking at today is the wrap function. Also, the other thing, could you guys let me know if the volume's okay? Hopefully it's alright. Because I've been messing around with so much stuff, I'm not sure how the volume's going. Anyway, give that a go. Hopefully it's alright. Hopefully you can hear me. Right. Um, what we're going to look at tonight is the wrap function, which is a non-linear function that's been around on the Kurzweil since the K2000 days. Now, it's when you first use it, if you've ever used PC3 or K2000 or K2600 or something like that, and you've come across the wrap block, normally the first thing you're going to hear is a nice nasty blast of noise. And the wrap block is a little bit more than that. It is certainly can be used as a noise generator if you crank it up, but it doesn't need to be. It's actually quite a useful block for doing, I don't know, a little bit of just to add a touch of distortion or a bit of expression. And on simple waveforms, you can do some really cool stuff with it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump across for a second, and we're going to have a look at something that I have done here. Right, this is my little. Oops, sorry guys. Oops. Try again. Right, try this one. Okay, I'm just going to jump across for a sec. Right, what we're looking at here, I'll just go back through this again, is a little program I've done up to show what the wrap function actually does. And I've got inputs here. So I've got sine. I can put a saw through it, or I can put a triangle wave, and you're not just limited to that. And over here is the wrap parameter. Now the magic number that you have to remember for wrap is -30, because if you set it to -30, wrap does nothing. Well, it does. It takes the it attenuates the signal a little bit, but it doesn't really do very much. Okay, so if you take it lower than that and you make the number lower, now on the PC3 you can go down to -32, on the K2600 you can go down to -96. But all it does below -30 is it just attenuates the signal and it makes it quieter and quieter. Okay, but the interesting stuff happens once you go above -30. So if we start pushing this up, and I'm going to describe here what it does. So what the wrap function does is, if essentially all it is an amplifier, and it adds gain to the signal. But what it does with that signal, it does an analysis on it, and if that signal would have clipped with that gain on it, what it does is it wraps the signal around to the opposite full range, and it continues it from there. So you can see here, if you follow my mouse, we've added a little bit of gain. So this sine wave goes up, it clips, and instead of clipping and making a straight line, what it does is it remaps it down here, and it adds it up. Adds that back to there, and once it's no longer clipping it, it comes back to the normal part. And the same thing when it hits minus full scale, it, instead of clipping, it actually wraps it back up here and adds that bit here. So if I go down a little bit more, add a bit more gain, you'll see it a little bit better. You'll see it a bit more pronounced here. So again, this is the same sine wave, and you can see this portion of the sine wave here has been amplified, and it's been pushed into this other part. Okay, so that's all the wrap function does. So how can this be useful? Well, I think, like, first of all, let's have a go back. We're going to go back and have a look at some of this one of the other, or just a normal usage of wrap, and just sitting around this -30. So I'm just going to go back for a second. Right, so what we're going to do here, I've got this, I've made a few programs up here, and the first one's called Wrapped Strings, so I'm just going to play it, hopefully you can hear. And what I've done in this sound is I have put in the wrap function to mono pressure. So you can hear, just as I press on mono pressure, you can hear it just starting to poke through. So let's go and have a look and see what I've done with this. So nice and simple. It's a 2-layer program. Both layers have got Meteor strings on as the key mat. And let's go and have a look at the algorithm. So I think the algorithm's nice and easy. It's the same on both. So the first one is just a straight pass through. Doesn't do anything. The second one has got a wrap, and then I've got a low pass filter. Okay, and all this low pass filter does is it just takes some of the really high frequency stuff from the noise away from it. Okay, so let's have a look and see how I've programmed wrap in this instance. You'll see, first thing, I've pulled the pitch down for this layer, so let's just solo this layer. So this is just this layer soloed, and you'll see that the wrap amount that I've got here is -29, so it's only just above that -30. So if I pull this down to -30, and I play it again, oh actually, okay, I've actually got two things at play here, so you have to take my word for it. If it's -30, I'll show you on another program, it won't clip, but I've got a couple of things going on here. So let's have a look at, on the right hand side here, I've got it set to -29, and what I've done is I've added key tracking. So as I go up the keyboard, so if I play high notes, they don't distort, they don't have the wrap going on, because it doesn't sound very nice up high. The ones down low, it sounds nice on this particular patch. And what I've also done is, if we go to the DSP mod, you'll see I've got 20 decibels of mono pressure here. So if I took this to 0, and I took this to -30, it won't distort. So it doesn't matter how hard I push that mono pressure, it doesn't distort. As soon as I push this up, once you start pushing it up, it does start distorting. So let's add this back. So what we've got here is we've got just a little distortion sound. And the other thing that you can use this for is if you want to get a little bit of clipping or a little bit of noise happening when you play at high velocity. So this one's probably not the best sound to do it with, because the string sound naturally has a little bit of fade in. But you can use this same technique to use the mono pressure to actually do the distortion for you. Okay, so that's the first application. So you can see here it's very subtle. We've only put, I mean, we've got 20 dB coming in here with the mono pressure, but we are sitting where we've got our basis down right down near that -30, and that's really where you want to start for all these functions. Okay, so we'll just get out of that. So this is another one that I've done, and all I've done here, we'll go back and have a look at the algorithm. It's just a bass sound. I've just got wrap enabled on it. So if we go down and have a look at it, listen to it without wrap on. Nice boring sound with wrap on. Oops. Let's go back in. You can see again, this is quite subtle. So I've only brought it up to -23.5. I've got a bit of key tracking and a bit of velocity tracking here. Right, so again, it's a very subtle thing. It adds some distortion to that bass sound. Alright, so let's go back, and we're going to go back and have a look at this. Going to go back and have a look at our other program for a second. Right, so one of the things here that some of the things that this wrap can be used for is, let's just have a look at this. As we take it from -29, one of the things that, if you keep an eye on these relative widths here, So this here is quite wide and this one here is quite narrow. Now as you push this up, actually this, let's do it on the triangle wave because you'll see it a little bit better on this one. So as we start bringing this down, you'll see that there's almost a pulse width modulation type of effect going on. You can see how this portion here is getting wider and the other portion is getting narrower. So you can use it quite subtly like that to produce some sort of pulse width modulation type of effects. So if we have a look at it with saw again, you can see the same sort of thing here. You can see how you're getting again a similar sort of thing. This is actually more like a hard sync, where you got a sawtooth wave triggering another sawtooth wave. So this is another application for this, is to use it more like a hard sync function. So again, that's another way we can use it. We'll go back and have a look at that as well. Okay, so and you'll see as you start pushing this up a lot higher, you'll see that it actually wraps around multiple times and it gets a lot denser, and this is why you're starting to produce noise at some of these high values, because it wraps around so much that essentially you've just got not necessarily random points, but the points are just all over the place, and so you essentially just get full on noise, and that's what happens as you crank it up. You lose all semblance of the original sound. Okay, so hopefully that explains a little bit about exactly what's going on with this wrap function. So we're going to go back and have a look at a few more programming examples. So just bear with me. All right, everything should be back. So I've got another few programs here. I've got a drum wrap. This is just using a default drum kit. Okay, and what I've done this time, this is the kick drum that's playing. Okay, so again, this is just adding some texture to those. Just adding a bit of texture to those drums. So let's just skip across to the algorithm, have a look, and we'll see what I'm doing here. So I've essentially just got that key map going through the wrap function, again through a low pass filter, just to filter out a few of those highs on it. Okay, so again, let's have a look and see what we've done with the wrap function. So in this case here, what I've got is there's no velocity tracking and no key tracking. You can see here I've got it set to -32, so with no modulation at all, and I'm modulating this with mono pressure. So if I play light, I don't know if you can hear that very well, but if I play light, I'll just turn it up. If I play light, you don't get any distortion. When I start playing heavier, I get the distortion, and that's what I was talking about. You can use this like a high velocity switch to actually bring in that distortion when you hit the keys hard. If you're programming this on Logic or Cubase or Ableton or whatever, what you need to do is you need to put some mono pressure messages in there to actually make this work in this situation. Okay, and all I've done for this is I've just used low pass filter, and I've just put a mod wheel over that. So in this case, what I've done is I've just used that distortion to add a little bit of character to an otherwise very dry and just an otherwise dry kit. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these simple waveforms. So the first one we're going to look at is a wrap saw, and this is using the wrap in a less than subtle manner. So let's just have a listen. All right, that doesn't sound like distortion, but we've got a lot of wrap going on. This is what I'm saying about wrap being very effective on waveforms that are quite on very simple waveforms. So I've got ignore that key map, it's just using the envelope off that. So if we go in and have a look at the algorithm, You see we've got just a sawtooth wave here. I haven't done anything to it. It's all the defaults that have come out. No tuning, no modulation or anything like that. So just to prove that there's nothing going on. Where all the magic's happening is in wrap. So what I've done is I set it at -25 while the mod wheel's down, and when the mod wheel's up, I add 50 dB to it. So it really does start pushing this. And so what's happening here is we're just adding a lot of extra harmonics. So we're essentially using this to just keep wrapping that sawtooth wave around. And as you saw from the Excel graph that we had, as you start pushing that gain up, it gets steeper and steeper, and it repeats more and more times. So your pitch goes up, and you get all these because the sawtooth is essentially asymmetric. You've got one bit that's longer than the other. You get all these interesting overtones that come out, and that's exactly what you're hearing here. So we're getting all these extra overtones generated. Okay, so again, that's really simple. There's nothing else on there. All that is just the wrap function. Okay, and again, we started off down at the around about the -30 level, and we've started playing from there. So I recommend if you're going to use the wrap function, start it off down there, and then start having a look at it a bit more. Okay, the other one I've got is a subtle wrap, and this is looking a bit more at that sort of pulse width modulation new type of effect that we're getting. So let's just have a listen to this. Okay, so that sounds like quite a nice little analog sort of synth sound. There's a little bit of movement around there. Again, very, very simple. In this case, I've put diagnostic sign just because there's no envelope on that. It just keeps going. We'll just go and have a look at the algorithm. Again, very simple. It's exactly the same as the last patch. Sawtooth wave through the wrap function. Just to prove there's nothing fancy going on in this sawtooth wave. There's just all the defaults. The magic again happens in wrap. So in this case, I'm starting off at -30, and I add 12 dB with the mod wheel, and that's all that does. It's just once I start pushing it beyond 12. So if I push the mod wheel up and you have a listen, see I start introducing the next set of harmonics. So 12 is the limit of this first set of harmonics. So it sounds nice and smooth. It really adds all this texture to the sawtooth wave. Now something else that you might want to do, I haven't actually had a look at this and tried it out, but if you use the shaper afterwards, so if we just go in here and we set this shaper amount at 1 times. That's probably not the best example to use it on there. Well, what the shaper can do, we've got a lot of these discontinuities. The shaper can actually help smooth them out. If we go back to the sine one that we used first, these wrap strings. If I go up to the second layer of this, solid this, go into the algorithm, and let's add the shaper at the end here. Where is it? All right. So the shaper's really tempered that down quite a lot in this case. Okay, so again, the shaper, even though it's a non-linear function, again, it can provide a lot of distortion. Again, at low settings, what it does is it tends to make things a lot more continuous, and all the shaper does, I'll do a tutorial on this at some stage, but all the shaper does is it maps a sawtooth wave into a sine wave. So it's just a very simple wave shaper, essentially. It's just basically it's a lookup table. You put a saw in, you get a sine wave out. So if you've got these things that look a bit like a saw, or you've got those, it approaches the extremes, like the full range, in the same way as a sawtooth. What will happen is that that'll actually get mapped to a sine, and it will go back, instead of getting a full wraparound, going from full range down to negative full range, what it does is it'll pass back through zero and in the shape of a sine. So the shaper can be very useful for making these, for dampening off some of that distortion quite nicely. Look, I've just about wrapped up what I wanted to say about the wrap function. It's not a very difficult function at all. There's not really that much to it, but I think one of the secrets to it is learning, or just recognizing that it works best at low values, and -30 is the magic number. At -30, essentially, it's at unity, and it doesn't do anything. And once you start moving away from that gradually is when you really start exploring a lot of the effects. And moving just a little bit can have quite a large effect on the sounds. And then as you go through the first cycle of wraps, where it just wraps once, and then once it starts wrapping a second time, you get a whole new set of dynamics coming into it. Look, guys, if you've got any questions, hit me up now before I take off. I did want to keep this one quite short, and I'm not sure. I've been recording for 20 minutes, so it's a little bit shorter than I was hoping. Okay, I got a couple of questions here. What does the wrap do to a square wave? Not very much. Essentially, all it does is it just amplifies it, so it just wraps it around more and more. So instead of having a square wave, what you do is you can get these steps in the middle. It's not. Look, I'll just pull it up, and you can have a listen. Yeah, the square wave isn't really the ideal. Oops. Okay, so let's just go. We'll just go into this saw, and we're just going to change this to a square wave. So let's just put that onto diagnostic sine, and we'll change this algorithm to a square wave. So essentially, all that you're getting there is what you're doing is you're just pushing the top and bottom of the square waves around, and I guess they start wrapping around more and more. And every time I'm just pushing the mod wheel up there, and every time you hear one of those thumps is when it wraps. It's just wrapping to the next one. So yeah, I guess not very exciting. I guess if you modulate your mod wheel a bit more, you could probably do something interesting with it. I don't know, maybe do some weird sort of glitchy music. I'm not sure, but the square wave really isn't the best candidate for rap, unfortunately. So don't know if you got any other questions there about rap and how to use it. Again, I probably don't use it all that much anyway. I do use it sometimes, mainly when I want to add a little bit of expression to something. So I might have a nice simple instrument, coming up, and what I want to do is just add a little bit of spice to the top end of it. Can I recommend any ROM samples that sound good and interesting when put through rap? Again, simple waveforms work. I tend to use it on things like flutes and strings and things like that. So where I've got a nice simple, like a nice sort of simple pad, and what I want to do is I use monopressure or some controller just to break it up at that top end. By itself, it doesn't sound all that good, but when you've got it going with some music, and you've got your drums and your bass and everything happening, what you can do is you can just add these little elements of sparkle, or these little elements where the sound just starts to break up a little bit. It's not something you probably want to use for orchestral music or something using, I guess, raw traditional instruments, but for electronic music, distortion, different types of distortion can be very, certainly very well, well, not well regarded, but it can be very interesting using different types of distortion, and rap can be used a bit like a distortion, those sort of instances. So again, the more type of simple sounds, so even I mean, strings are based on sawtooth. So if you want to make a string, you can start with sawtooth. A flute is more of a sort of square wave, but it's got a lot of it can have quite a lot of overtones, a lot of expression in it. They're mainly the ones. They're the ones that I mainly use them for. But look, it's drums are another one from ROM. So if you want to distort drums and start doing some interesting things with drums, you can have a look at it on that sort of basis there. It works nice on hi-hats. It works. It can be used on snare drums to get a bit more punch. It can be used on kick drums if you've got quite a dry kick drum and you want to break up that attack a little bit. You can use it there. Yeah, I'm not sure what else. Toms, I guess, though toms are pretty much the same as kick drums. In any case, just a little bit more boomy. But yeah, I mean, they're the sort of things you can use it. You basically got two choices with rap. You can use it to try and enhance the attack or to try and modify the attack at the start of the sound, or you can use it to focus on the body of the sound as it develops and try and do something subtle with that with a controller. So they're really your two types. Of course, you can just crank it up and just distort the bejesus out of everything. That's another option, and it's very, very effective at doing that. If you bring it up to 0 or above 0, it really will distort things. I don't know if we've got any more questions. We've gone a little bit over 30 minutes, but if you got some more questions, I don't mind. Even if it's not related to rap specifically, if you got some other question that you're interested in about the PC3 or the K26, I'm happy to sit around for a few minutes and answer any of them. So I guess look, if there's I'll keep an eye on the thing. If there's any more questions that come up, I'll answer them. But look, I'll start doing a bit of a wrap up now. What we've had a look at today is the wrap function and using it in a more subtle manner, I guess. The one thing to remember is start at minus 30 as the amount for it. That minus 30 dB that starts you off at pretty much unity. So it's going to sound, the input's going to sound, or the output's going to sound very similar to the input. So start off there and then start just increasing it by small amounts, because small amounts of rap can have a very large impact on the sound. And try controlling it over small ranges initially, so maybe over 3 or 4 decibels. Just make that the entire range of your mod wheel or your slider or whatever you want to control it with. Just start there and just sort of see how it sounds, and then you start pushing the boundaries. So it's one of those blocks that can be used very effectively, very subtle in using small amounts of it. Look at, if you do use it and the distortion's a little bit too much, look at things like low pass filters to take away some of that high end. Look at perhaps using the shaper with some low settings to get rid of some of the discontinuities. Use it there. I find that it works better at the low end of the keyboard more so than the high end. So I guess that's another tip. And yeah, look, I guess they're really the keys to it. I'll put the programs that I use in this tutorial, I'll put them up on Kunker, and you can have a look at them. If you haven't signed up to Kunker, get on over there. There's fewer and fewer Kurzweil forums on the web now, and we do our best to try and to cater for them and ask or answer all the questions that you guys might have. Look, I think I'm going to probably wrap it up. There's no more questions coming through, so look, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the feedback and the questions, and again, apologies for the late start. It's been a bit of a technological nightmare in the studio tonight. Haven't started counting the cost yet. It's not going to be cheap to get everything going again, but that's how it is. So, look, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully that's dispelled a few myths and given you a few ideas of how to use rap. I've got somebody's put up some suggestions for some future tutorials. So I'm going to have a look at live mode on the K2600 in the near future. I'm going to I want to do a few more blocks. I'm going to probably have a look at the shaper, a bit of effects programming. So we've got a few different ideas there. If you've got anything you want me to cover, let me know on Kunker, and I'll see what I can do. All right. Thanks, guys, and good night. I'll talk to you. I'll see you guys again soon.